You've thought about it in passing. What happens after your last breath? Maybe you've wondered quietly. Maybe you've avoided the thought altogether. But here's the truth. One day, you will close your eyes to this world and open them in another. And when you do, what God reveals to you in those first moments will undo everything you thought you understood. Don't look away, because these first revelations are not just about death. They're about how you live right now. The moment your heart stops, you don't fall into nothingness. You wake up, and you don't wake up into a dream. You wake up into truth, into weight, into light that doesn't shine on you. It shines through you. Your soul immediately knows. Time is over. The race is done. The test is sealed. And in the stillness of that moment, the first thing God reveals is this. You were never alone. Not once. Even when you cursed Him. Even when you felt abandoned. Even in your worst sin. Your deepest depression. Your final tear. He was there. Not watching from a distance, but leaning in, protecting you from things you never saw, holding your life together when you thought you were unraveling. Psalm 139 wasn't poetic, it was literal. Even if I make my bed in the depths, you are there. And now, you see that He was. It stuns you, this holy nearness. You remember times you felt numb, empty, cold, times you said, God, where are you? But now He shows you. He shows you the spiritual realm you never had the eyes to see. Angels stationed around you. Battles waged over your mind. Interventions in traffic. Mercy that redirected bullets. Prayers that stopped the enemy's plan cold. You were never just living. You were being guarded. You were never just struggling. You were being carried. And your soul begins to tremble, not from fear, but from awe, because you thought you were forsaken. But now, in eternity, the veil is pulled back, and you know, you were never alone in that hospital, never alone on that floor, never alone in that car when you screamed in silence. He was there, always. Then the second revelation hits. Your choices mattered more than you realized. Eternity doesn't exaggerate. It reveals. And suddenly, the moments you brushed off as small show up in full weight. The word of encouragement you almost didn't send. The grudge you held too long. The prayer you whispered instead of complaining. Every second, a seed. Every action, a ripple. You begin to see how your obedience built spiritual walls around your family, how your secret worship shifted atmospheres, how your refusal to gossip blocked a demonic foothold, and you weep, not from regret, but from realization. 2 Corinthians 5:10 shakes through your being, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, and you now understand. This isn't about punishment. It's about revealing what was eternal in your temporary life. You realize now that the enemy's greatest attack wasn't always in trauma. It was in distraction, in convincing you your life didn't matter, that your choices didn't count. But God reveals differently. He shows you the effect of your no to temptation, the souls impacted by your yes to stay when you wanted to leave, the destinies connected to the way you loved your children. You were not living in isolation. You were building something with every breath. Then the third revelation dawns. Your body was never your identity. You see yourself now, soul illuminated with purity, not confined to flesh, not defined by your appearance, your weight, your scars, your age. You see the glory of what you truly were underneath it all. The insecurities you carried, the comparison, the striving, they fall away like old skin. You see yourself the way heaven always saw you, fearfully, wonderfully, not because you were flawless, but because you bore his image. And you remember 1 Samuel 16:7, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And the heart was everything. You cry in your spirit because you realize how much time you spent trying to be accepted, trying to be enough. But now God shows you that the version of you he loved most wasn't the filtered one, the polished one, the one with achievements and applause. It was the you in your rawest moments of surrender, the one who cried out in the dark, the one who kept showing up when no one clapped. That was the you he called beloved. And then the fourth truth floods your soul. The things you thought disqualified you, God used most. The brokenness you hid, the addiction you battled, the trauma you buried. God did not waste a drop of it. He shows you how he turned your pain into intercession, how he made your grief a doorway to empathy, how he took the very things the enemy tried to destroy you with and made them altars of worship. Romans 8:28 glows through the air. He works all things together for good to those who love him. And now you see it. You feel it. You know it. The betrayals, the abandonment, the shame. God didn't cause them, but he redeemed them. You thought your scars made you unworthy. But here, your scars shine, not in shame, but in testimony, because they point to the one who carried you, to the one whose own scars bought your freedom. And now, your soul joins with Christ's in a song not of survival, but of victory. What was once a wound has become a well. What was once pain has become power. And then, he speaks, not audibly, not in thunder, but in your soul, a knowing, a whisper that carries galaxies. And he says, you were mine, the whole time, and you break, because you know it's true, even when you wandered, even when you doubted, even when you thought he was silent. He had already written your name in the Lamb's Book of Life. He had already counted every hair, every tear, every heartbeat. You were never forgotten. You were pursued, and you realize this is only the beginning. You don't bring suitcases into eternity. You don't carry wealth, titles, or resumes. But make no mistake, you do carry something. And in the first days after death, God shows you exactly what it was. This is the fifth revelation. Your soul arrived carrying what you treasured most, not what you said you loved, not what you posted about, what you actually, truly built your life around. And in this holy unveiling, everything hidden becomes visible, everything subtle becomes weighty, and everything eternal becomes clear. You feel it, not like shame, but like a holy exposure. The spotlight of heaven doesn't burn you, it reads you, and you begin to see what you spent your energy, affection, and attention on. Some of it glows with glory, your love for people, your worship in pain, your private obedience. But other things, they dissolve. You see the hours you gave to fear, the years you handed over to insecurity, the bitterness you fed, the offenses you protected, the wounds you wore like armor. They didn't come with you, but the effects did. And God doesn't rebuke you like an angry judge. He reveals like a loving father. He lets you feel the spiritual weight of every emotion you allowed to shape your heart. You realize you didn't just carry stress. You carried agreement with lies. You didn't just carry wounds. You carried walls that kept healing out. And now you see that eternity doesn't erase everything. It reveals it, so it can be burned away or carried forward. 1 Corinthians 3:13 ignites around you. The fire will test what sort of work each one has done. And the fire doesn't come to destroy. It comes to purify. You watch as certain things you thought were meaningful evaporate. Positions, opinions, applause, grudges, and then you watch as others burn brighter. Your intercessions, your tears sown in secret, the time you blessed instead of cursed. You thought no one saw those moments, but heaven saw, and now, so do you. And in this revealing, you learn the sixth truth. Your heart was heaven's measuring tool, not your numbers, not your platform, not your perfection. Your heart, every motive, every intention, every quiet choice of purity over popularity, surrender over control, humility over pride, it mattered more than you will ever understand in the flesh. And now, you see it plainly. That time you apologized first, though it broke your pride. That wasn't small. That was kingdom. That moment you said no to gossip, yes to the secret place, yes to fasting, yes to uncomfortable forgiveness. Those were bricks laid in heaven's foundation, and now they stand eternal. Your soul begins to bow low, not because God is intimidating, but because He is truth. And in His presence, you don't feel afraid, you feel known. And for the first time, you're not running, you're not proving, you're not hiding. You are simply seen. And the strange thing, you love it because the gaze of God doesn't expose you to shame you. It exposes you to heal you, to show you who you really are. And in that light, something even deeper breaks open. You begin to remember your calling, not the one you chased, but the one you ignored. The assignment you knew deep in your bones, but ran from because it was too costly, too hidden, too misunderstood. And now, standing in eternity, you finally understand what that call was really about. It wasn't about your success. It was about your surrender. God shows you how your gift wasn't just a talent. It was a weapon, a tool in His hand, a bridge for others. You thought you had time, but now you know. You were on assignment every day, and He was waiting not for you to be ready, but for you to be willing. Romans 11:29 echoes, "The gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable." And now you see the weight of that truth. God didn't change His mind about you. Not after your failure, not after your backsliding, not after your silence. But you see how you settled. You see the people He sent for you to reach, the doors He opened that fear closed, and you don't feel crushed. You feel called, even now, even in eternity, because your calling wasn't just for earth. It carries into the kingdom, and that leads to the seventh revelation. Your yes was always about more than you. In those first days after death, God shows you the ripple effect of your obedience. You see how your yes to stay in that hard marriage saved generations. How your yes to purity gave others permission to break free. How your yes to sacrifice birthed provision for someone you never even met. You thought you were just surviving, but now you see you were planting seeds for eternity, and every act of faith, even the mustard seed ones, has now bloomed in heaven's soil. Galatians 6:9 glows like a crown over your memory. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And now you are reaping, and you wish you could go back, not for another chance to live in comfort, but for another chance to live on fire, to give more, love deeper, obey faster, because now you know the weight of your yes. And as the days unfold, you begin to feel the eighth truth. Heaven remembers what earth forgets. The apologies no one accepted, the prayers no one heard, the kindness no one acknowledged, the fast you kept secret, the offering you gave in tears, the night you worshipped when no one was watching. Heaven never forgot. God wrote it all down, not because he needed to, but because you needed to know it mattered. Malachi 3:16 sings in the atmosphere. Scroll of remembrance was written in his presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored his name. And your name is there, not in pencil, not in invisible ink, etched in light, etched in love, etched in blood, and your soul begins to burn with joy, not because you were perfect, but because you were his, and he kept record of everything you gave him in secret, because in the kingdom, nothing surrendered is ever wasted. You always sensed there was more going on. You couldn't see it, couldn't name it, but deep in your soul, you felt it, an invisible resistance, a pressure that didn't match your circumstances. And in your first days beyond the veil, God reveals the ninth truth. You were at war, and you didn't even know how intense it really was. Your life wasn't small. It was contested, not because you were weak, but because you were dangerous. God begins to pull back the curtain and show you the unseen battlefield you walked through every single day. You see the demons assigned to distract you, depress you, destroy you. You see the traps laid by darkness, the strategic moments where the enemy tried to steal your calling, poison your relationships, assassinate your identity, and you thought you were just going through hard days. But now, you see it clearly. It was spiritual war, and you made it. Ephesians 6:12 is no longer a verse, it's a vision. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against powers of this dark world and spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. And your soul shakes because you remember the nights you cried and thought God had left you. But now, God shows you angels dispatched to cover you. He shows you how every prayer you whispered in weariness sent shockwaves through the spirit realm. You thought you were breaking, but you were breaking chains. You see how your worship shifted atmospheres, how your obedience redirected curses, how your perseverance disrupted demonic timelines. The devil didn't fight you because you were weak. He fought you because you were a threat, because you carried oil, because you had fire, because you were walking, even wounded, toward the gates of hell with a torch in your hand and the name of Jesus on your lips. And now God lets you see how many people were saved, not because you were loud, but because you were faithful. You remember the voices that told you it wasn't worth it, the shame that whispered, "You're too far gone," the moments you almost walked away. But now God shows you the alternate story, the one the enemy planned. You see where your family would be if you didn't intercede, where your children would be if you gave in, where your church would be if you left when it got hard. And you break because you didn't know your yes carried this much weight. But God knew, and He reveals to you that even your losses weren't losses in the kingdom. They were training. Your betrayals were boot camp. Your loneliness was preparation. Your hidden seasons weren't rejection. They were refining. Because your purpose wasn't just to survive this life, it was to win territory for heaven. And that's why you were fought so hard. Because every day you stayed faithful, Even with trembling hands, you tore something from the enemy's grip. You see now that the wounds you carried in silence were not shameful. They were sacred. Every attack that hit your identity was targeted. Every delay was demonic resistance. But you didn't break. You bent. You bowed in prayer. You lifted your hands through tears. You fasted when it didn't make sense. You loved people who didn't love you back. And heaven honors that kind of warfare. 2 Timothy 4:7 fills your soul with fire. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And now you know what that fight looked like in the spirit. You thought it was just about surviving bills, navigating heartbreak, enduring spiritual droughts. But really, it was about stewarding the flame, keeping your oil burning, saying yes when hell screamed no, and heaven took notice. You begin to weep, not because you're ashamed, but because you realize you were braver than you gave yourself credit for. You carried things that would have crushed others. You kept walking when others stopped. You worshipped when you were bleeding. And God honors it. He reveals it. He says, "Well done." And the tone isn't casual. It's royal. Because the King of Kings doesn't applaud performance. He honors perseverance. You begin to see your scars differently. They are not reminders of failure. They are proof that you didn't quit, that you walked through fire and came out glowing. Revelation 12:11 becomes your anthem. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Your testimony isn't a story. It's a weapon. It's etched into heaven's record, and it will echo into generations. And then God shows you something that undoes you completely. The ones who were watching you, people you didn't even know were looking, people who watched how you worshipped in pain, how you stood in grief, how you prayed when no one else had faith, and you see how your life unlocked doors for them. Your obedience lit paths. Your survival gave them permission to believe. You didn't just fight for yourself. You fought for them. And that leads to the 10th revelation, the final one of your first days in eternity. You didn't live for yourself. You lived for legacy. The choices you made weren't about comfort. They were about inheritance. You now see the spiritual children who will rise because of the seed you planted, the broken who will find freedom because you shared your wounds, the captives who will walk out of darkness because you stayed in the light. And you realize heaven is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your impact. And you say to God with tears in your soul, "I had no idea." And he says, "But I did. That's why I never gave up on you." And now, as your soul begins to settle in the stillness of eternity, you feel something shift. Not an ending, but a beginning. You've walked through revelation after revelation. You've seen what was hidden, felt what was eternal, and understood what was invisible on earth. But in the quiet holiness of this next moment, God reveals something deeper still. You weren't just being tested on earth, you were being prepared. Every valley was a rehearsal. Every trial was a setup. Every heartbreak, every delay, every tear, none of it was random. It was all leading to this. Jesus wasn't poetic when he said in John 14:2, "I go to prepare a place for you." He meant it. And now, you see it. That place is not a mansion in the worldly sense. It's a dwelling crafted by his hands and shaped by your surrender. Your place in heaven is not generic. It's personal. It feels like him. And it feels like you. You walk through it, and you're overcome, not by luxury, but by love. Love is in every corner. Love is in every light beam. Love is in every fragrance. And your soul knows this is home. This is what you were longing for every time you felt restless on earth. Every time your spirit sighed at sunset. Every time you whispered, there has to be more. This was the more. The kingdom wasn't waiting to grade you. It was waiting to receive you. And now that you're here, you understand why earth never quite satisfied. Because your soul was made for this country. You were never meant to feel at home in the chaos. You were born into time, but made for eternity. And now, you're finally aligned. You're finally whole. There's no more striving. No more pretending. No more searching. You are fully known and fully loved. But even in all this glory, your soul isn't idle, because heaven isn't stagnant. Heaven is alive. Worship is not a routine, it's a river. Glory is not a concept, it's the air. And the moment you begin to sing, your worship doesn't just echo, it builds. Every hallelujah adds structure to the kingdom. Every cry of worthy strengthens the atmosphere of eternity. You're not here to sit, you're here to reign. Revelation 22:5 pulses through your spirit, and they will reign forever and ever. This is not retirement. This is royalty. You look around and realize that every person in heaven, every soul, was once a fragile, doubting, sin-stained traveler like you, and now, radiant, whole, redeemed. The ones you lost are not lost. They're found, and they remember you. They welcome you. They tell you how your prayers reached them, how your legacy led them, how your love built bridges across decades, and you fall to your knees, undone, because you thought your life was average. But in eternity, faithfulness is never forgotten. You see saints you read about, David, Moses, Esther, Paul, but you don't feel like a fan. You feel like family. There's no celebrity in heaven, only servants who said yes. And now, you join their ranks, not because you earned it, but because you believed. And your soul rejoices, not in who's here, but in who brought you all here. The Lamb, Jesus, the one who was and is to come. And now, he walks toward you. This isn't your first glimpse. He's been there the whole time. But now, face to face, you feel what Peter meant when he said in 1 Peter 1:8, though you have not seen him, you love him. And now you rejoice with joy, unspeakable and full of glory, because there is no word for what it's like to see him. His eyes are eternity. His voice is the sound your soul's been waiting to hear your entire life. And when he says your name, everything in you comes alive. You fall before him, not because you must, but because you can't help it. He is the reason you made it, the reason you held on, the reason your soul still breathes. And he doesn't just receive your worship, he joins you in it. He kneels beside you. He lifts your chin. He looks at you not with judgment, but with delight. And he says what your soul has longed to hear since the day you were born. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord. And with those words, the story opens, not ends, because the 10 things God reveals in your first days dead are not just revelations. They are invitations to joy, to royalty, to eternity, to him. And now, you begin to live like never before. The aches of your earthly life dissolve. The regrets you thought would haunt you, gone. The doubts that used to keep you up at night, silenced. The tears, wiped by the very hand of the one who counts everyone. Revelation 21:4 echoes like a final promise fulfilled. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. And it has. You look back one last time, not in longing, but in love. Earth was hard, but now it was worth it. Every yes, every surrender, every time you chose grace over vengeance, prayer over panic, worship over worry, it was worth it. And now you know why. Because God did not call you to survive life. He called you to complete it, to finish the race, to see His face. And now, standing in glory, you finally realize death is not the end of your story. It's the opening line of your eternity.